My daughter is having an affair with the married neighbor. I told her she needs to move out of my house. I never thought I'd be the one saying the words, but they came out of my mouth before I even knew I'd decided. You need to move out of my house. My daughter froze in the doorway. She was holding her phone and her face turned pale like I just ripped the ground out from under her feet. You don't mean that, she said, her voice sharp but shaky. But I did mean it, because not even 10 minutes before, I had looked out my kitchen window and seen her with him, my married neighbor. The man whose wife waves to me every morning when she drives their kids to school. The man who has barbecues in his backyard with his family while pretending to be the perfect husband. I saw him slip into my yard. I saw the way my daughter leaned against the side of the garage like they'd done this before. I saw his hand on her cheek, his lips moving too close to hers. And then, when she thought nobody was looking, I saw her kiss him back. That was the moment everything inside me broke. And now here I was, standing in my own kitchen, telling my daughter, the little girl I raised, the one I swore to protect, that she couldn't live under my roof while doing something so cruel, so destructive, and so wrong. She looked like she wanted to argue, to scream, maybe even to beg. Instead, she just clenched her jaw and said, "You don't understand." And then she turned to leave. But she didn't go to her room. She went outside, toward him. I pressed my hand against the counter to steady myself, my whole body shaking, because I had no idea what was about to happen next, but I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't over. Not even close. It started months ago, though at the time I didn't recognize the signs. Back then, it was little things. My daughter spending more time in the backyard, her sudden interest in going for walks right when I knew the neighbor was likely to be outside, the quick way she'd hide her phone screen when I walked into the room. I thought maybe she was just texting friends, or maybe she had a secret boyfriend she didn't want to tell me about yet. But then I started noticing the looks. The way she'd smile too wide when our neighbor waved hello, the way her face would flush when he made some harmless joke across the fence. At first, I brushed it off. She's young, she's naive, maybe it was just a crush. Crushes happen. But the unease grew. I remember one night, I woke up around 1 a.m. to get some water. The house was quiet, but when I looked out the front window, I saw her sitting in his truck, just sitting there, the glow of her phone lighting her face. He was in the driver's seat. They weren't moving, they weren't talking, just sitting too close for too long. The next morning, I confronted her. She rolled her eyes and told me I was being paranoid, that he was just giving her life advice. She said I was being overprotective. I wanted to believe her, but something in my gut told me I shouldn't. And last week, I finally got proof. It was subtle at first, a slip-up. I heard her on the phone whispering in her room late at night. She laughed softly and said, "Not here, my mom's home, tomorrow, okay?" And then she said his name. That was when I knew. Still, even knowing it, even piecing the puzzle together, it didn't prepare me for what I saw today. For the sight of my daughter kissing the married man next door in broad daylight, like she didn't care who caught her. And now with her storming outside toward him after I told her to move out, I had to decide. Do I follow her? Do I confront him? Do I tell his wife? My hands were trembling so badly, I had to grip the edge of the counter just to stay upright. Because this isn't just about my daughter anymore. It's about two families. And the choices I make next could destroy everything. I stood frozen in my kitchen window, watching my daughter walk across the lawn toward him like it was the most natural thing in the world. My stomach was twisted in knots so tight I thought I might actually be sick. She didn't look back once. Not at me, not at the house. She had this determined look, almost daring me to stop her, but I couldn't move. I wanted to storm out the door, grab her by the wrist, and drag her back inside. I wanted to scream across the yard that he was married, that his wife was probably inside folding laundry or cooking dinner, that his kids were upstairs doing homework or playing video games, that this was wrong on every possible level. But instead, I just stood there like a coward, my fingernails digging crescents into the wood of the window frame. She reached him. He was leaning against his car, like he'd been waiting. He didn't even glance up at my house. His body language was all casual, hands in his pockets, smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, like he knew exactly what he was doing and didn't care who saw. And then I saw it, his hand brushing hers as they stood too close, their heads bent together in a private world I wasn't welcome in. I shut the blinds so hard they clattered, and I pressed my back against the wall, chest heaving. My daughter, my only child. And this man, this neighbor who'd smiled at me over backyard barbecues, who'd waved when he drove past, who'd barred my ladder last spring. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table and put my head in my hands. I didn't know what to do. If I told his wife, it would blow up not only their marriage, but my relationship with my daughter. If I called her out again, she'd just dig her heels in deeper. And if I did nothing, I'd be complicit. The minutes crawled by, and every tick of the clock made me feel like I was sitting on a bomb that could go off any second. Finally, I heard the back door creak open. She came in, cheeks flushed, hair slightly mussed. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look scared. She looked defiant. "Don't start," she said before I even opened my mouth. She grabbed a glass, filled it with water, and leaned against the counter, sipping like nothing had happened. My blood boiled. "You're playing with fire. He's married, for God's sake. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" She slammed the glass down, water sloshing onto the counter. Yes, I know exactly what I'm doing. Don't talk to me like I'm stupid. He has a wife, I shot back. He has kids. You're not just wrecking your life, you're wrecking theirs too. Her face twisted. That's not your problem. You don't know what their marriage is like. You don't know what she's like to him. Maybe she doesn't even care anymore. Maybe they're just going through the motions. Don't you dare justify this, I said, voice shaking. Don't you dare make excuses for what you're doing. You're sneaking around with a man who made vows to someone else, and I won't have it under my roof. Her eyes flashed. Then maybe I won't be under your roof much longer. The words landed like a punch to the gut. I stared at her, searching her face for some sign of hesitation, some flicker of regret, but she stared right back, chin high, daring me to call her bluff. I couldn't. Not then. I just turned away, my throat closing. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying it all in my head. The way she'd walked toward him, the way he hadn't even bothered to hide his smug little grin, the way she'd thrown my ultimatum back in my face. I kept thinking about his wife. Did she know? Did she have any clue? Or was she blissfully unaware, baking cookies for her kids while her husband snuck across the lawn to see my daughter? I tried to tell myself it wasn't my problem, but it was. It was happening in my house, under my roof, with my child. The next morning, I decided to keep things calm. Pushing her harder right now would only push her further into his arms. So I acted normal, making breakfast like usual. She sat down, scrolling on her phone, barely looking at me. But then her phone buzzed, and I watched her face light up in a way I hadn't seen in months. She typed something quickly, smiling to herself. I didn't even have to ask who it was. Something inside me snapped. Is it him? I asked flatly. Her head jerked up. What? Is it him? She shoved her phone into her pocket. It's none of your business. I slammed my hand down on the table. It is my business. He lives next door, and you live in my house. Do you think this is just some secret fling that won't touch me? You're dragging me into this whether you like it or not. Her chair scraped back hard as she stood. Stop. Just stop. You don't understand, okay? You don't understand how I feel. How you feel doesn't change the fact that he's married. Do you think this ends with some happy ever after? Because let me tell you something, men like that never do. They use you until they get bored, and then they toss you aside. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You don't know him. I know enough. And then without another word, she stormed upstairs, her footsteps pounding like thunder. I sat there, shaking, staring at the untouched plates of food. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. The rest of the day passed in tense silence. She barely came out of her room. I tiptoed around the house like a stranger in my own home. But as evening fell, I noticed the glow of her phone under her door, the soft murmur of her voice. She was talking to him. I pressed my forehead against the wood, straining to hear. Snatches of words floated through. I'll try. She's being impossible. I want to see you. My blood ran cold. The next morning, I woke to find her bags half-packed. What are you doing? I demanded, heart hammering. She looked up, eyes red, but determined. I can't live here if you're just going to judge me and try to control me. I'll figure it out. I'll stay with a friend for a while. No, you're not doing this, my voice cracked. I am, she said firmly, zipping up the suitcase. I wanted to grab it from her hands, to lock the door and keep her safe inside, but I knew I couldn't cage her, not without losing her completely. And then, like some cruel twist of fate, I heard it. A knock at the front door. I knew before I even opened it who it was. There he stood, the married neighbor, smug, confident, like he had every right to be here. Hey, he said smoothly, eyes flicking past me into the house. My chest tightened, rage bubbling up so strong I thought I might explode. And that's when I realized this was no longer just my daughter's mess. He was standing on my doorstep, dragging me into it, daring me to stop him. And I had a choice to make. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, it was like every nerve in my body lit up with fire. My fists clenched so tight I could feel my nails digging into my palms. He didn't even look nervous, not even a little guilty. He stood there with that same smug confidence, like a man who believed the world bent to him whenever he wanted it to. Behind me, I could hear my daughter thumping down the stairs with her half-packed suitcase. She didn't even hesitate. The second she saw him, her whole face softened and she almost smiled. I wanted to vomit. You need to leave, I said, voice low, trying to keep myself from shouting right there on the porch. He tilted his head, as if amused. I'm just here to give her a ride, that's all. That's all? My voice cracked into something sharp. You're married. You have a wife and children inside that house, and you're standing on my porch asking for my daughter like you're taking her to prom. Do you have any shame at all? Something flickered across his face, irritation, but it was gone as fast as it appeared. Look, this isn't your business. She's an adult. She can make her own decisions. Before I could answer, my daughter pushed past me, dragging her suitcase, eyes blazing. Stop it, Mom. Stop treating me like I'm a child. I told you, I know what I'm doing. I spun on her, stunned. What you're doing is destroying someone's family. What you're doing is throwing your life away for a man who won't even look you in the eye once his wife finds out. Do you not see that? Her face twisted. You don't get it. He loves me. The words hit me like a slap. For a second, I just stood there, staring at her, trying to figure out if she actually believed it or if she was just trying to convince herself. He stepped closer, and I instinctively blocked the doorway, planting myself between them. You need to turn around and go home, I said, through clenched teeth. Now, before I call your wife and tell her everything. That got his attention. His jaw tightened, and for the first time the smugness slipped. His eyes narrowed into something cold, calculating. "Careful," he said softly, voice low enough that only I could hear. "You don't want to start a war you can't finish." I blinked at him, stunned by the sheer audacity of it. Was that a threat? Behind me, I could hear my daughter gasp. "Stop, please, both of you." She pushed past me, stepping right into his space. "I'll go with him. I don't care what you think, Mom. I don't care if you hate me for it. I'm not giving this up." My heart cracked clean in half. "Sweetheart," my voice trembled. "Don't do this, please. He's not who you think he is. You're going to regret this, I swear." She shook her head, eyes filled with anger and desperation. "No, you're just jealous that someone finally sees me, that someone actually cares about me. You've never understood me, but he does." The words were like knives. I staggered back a step, unable to breathe. He stepped closer, and I instinctively blocked the doorway, planting myself between them. "You need to turn around and go home," I said through clenched teeth. "Now, before I call your wife and tell her everything." That got his attention. His jaw tightened, and for the first time the smugness slipped. His eyes narrowed into something cold, calculating. "Careful," he said softly, voice low enough that only I could hear. "You don't want to start a war you can't finish." I blinked at him, stunned by the sheer audacity of it. Was that a threat? Behind me, my daughter gasped. "Stop, please, both of you." She pushed past me, stepping right into his space. "I'll go with him. I don't care what you think, Mom. I don't care if you hate me for it. I'm not giving this up." My heart cracked clean in half. "Sweetheart," my voice trembled. "Don't do this, please. He's not who you think he is. You're going to regret this, I swear." She shook her head, eyes filled with anger and desperation. "No, you're just jealous that someone finally sees me, that someone actually cares about me. You've never understood me, but he does." The words were like knives. I staggered back a step, unable to breathe. He stepped closer, and I nearly lunged at him. But before I could, she turned and started walking down the path toward his car. I snapped. "If you walk out that door with him, don't you dare think you can come crawling back when it all blows up in your face. Because it will. It always does." She froze for just a moment, shoulders stiff, like maybe my words had hit somewhere deep inside. But then she lifted her chin and kept walking. My knees went weak. I gripped the doorframe, watching her leave, my chest aching so badly I thought I might collapse. He followed her, glancing back at me one last time with that same look of smug victory, like he'd won, like I was powerless. I watched as she slid into his car, her suitcase tossed in the back. He got behind the wheel, started the engine, and without another word, they drove away. I stood there on the porch long after the car disappeared down the street, my body trembling. It felt like my house had gone hollow, like my life had just been cracked open and emptied. But the longer I stood there, the more the rage replaced the grief. He thought he'd won. He thought he could just take her away like she was some shiny new toy, and I'd roll over and let it happen. No, this wasn't over. I went inside, grabbed my phone, and scrolled to his wife's number. We'd exchanged contacts once years ago when we were neighborly enough to trade recipes and borrow tools. My thumb hovered over the call button, shaking. But then I stopped. If I called her now, what would happen? My daughter would see it as betrayal. She'd run further into his arms. He'd spin the story however he wanted, and she'd believe him. I couldn't just burn it all down in one move. Not yet. I had to be smarter. I had to bide my time. That night, the silence in the house was unbearable. I kept expecting her footsteps on the stairs, her voice calling from her room. But there was nothing. Just emptiness. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. What if he hurt her? What if he used her up and tossed her aside? What if his wife found out and humiliated her publicly? And worst of all, what if my daughter chose him over me forever? I thought about driving to his house right then, pounding on the door until his wife answered. I thought about barging into their living room, dragging my daughter out by the arm. But then I thought about her face earlier, how defiant she looked, how certain she was that she was in love. If I pushed too hard, I'd lose her completely. So I waited. 2 days later, she came home, not for good, just to grab more of her things. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed, her movements sharp and defensive. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to hold her and tell her everything would be okay, but the wall between us was too high now. Instead, I just asked quietly, "Are you okay?" She glared. "I'm fine. Don't act like you care now." The words sliced me open, but I didn't respond. I just watched as she stuffed more clothes into a bag and stomped back out the door. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife even deeper, I saw her climb into his car again. His wife's car was in the driveway, which meant his wife was inside, which meant she either didn't know, or worse, she did know and didn't care. I couldn't take it anymore. Something had to give. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, the phone in my hand, again, I finally made a decision. If my daughter wouldn't see the truth, I'd make sure his wife did. I typed out a message. Short, sharp, brutal. "I think you should know that your husband is having an affair with my daughter." My finger hovered over the send button, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. And just as I was about to hit send, the front door opened. I jumped to my feet, phone slipping from my hand. It was her, my daughter, standing in the doorway, shaking, tears streaming down her face. And behind her, in the shadows, he was there too. The doorway felt like a battlefield. My daughter stood trembling in the threshold, her face blotchy from crying, her suitcase still clutched in her hand like she had run here, desperate, not thinking, just fleeing. And then there was him, lurking behind her, just far enough back that the porch light didn't catch his full expression. But I could see enough. That smugness was gone. What replaced it was darker, sharper, something that sent every instinct in my body screaming danger. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. What is this? Why are you here? My daughter sniffled, glancing between me and him. Mom, please, just don't start. I had nowhere else to go. We just need to talk. Please. I looked at her, then at him. We? My voice cut like glass. No, you can come in, he can leave. He finally stepped forward into the light, his hand brushing against her arm in a way that made me want to slap it away. His smile was tight, forced. With respect, this involves me too. She's with me now. No, I snapped. She's my daughter. This has nothing to do with you except for the wreckage you're dragging behind you. Now leave. For a moment, I thought he might actually push past me. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw clenched, and his hand lingered a second too long on her arm before she pulled away. Go inside, I told her firmly, locking eyes with her. Now. She hesitated, torn between us before finally stepping past me into the house. He tried to follow, but I blocked the doorway. I said, leave. I hissed. For the first time, his smile cracked into a sneer. He leaned in, his voice low enough that my daughter wouldn't hear. If you ruin this for her, you'll regret it. Don't think I won't fight back. I have more power than you realize. My blood turned to ice. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him by the collar and drag him down the porch steps. But before I could say anything, my daughter's voice came from behind me. Mom, please, just let him in. The words nearly broke me. I turned to her, her face red and wet with tears, her eyes wide, begging. She didn't see what I saw. She didn't feel the danger rolling off him in waves. She thought he was her salvation. I stepped aside slowly, my eyes never leaving his. He smirked like he'd just won another round and brushed past me into the living room. The air inside the house was thick, suffocating. My daughter sat on the edge of the couch, clutching a pillow like it could shield her. He stood beside her, his hand on the back of the couch, looming. I stayed standing. Say what you came here to say, I demanded. My daughter took a shaky breath. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to choose between you and him. I need you to understand that this is real, that I love him and he loves me. I opened my mouth, but he cut in smoothly, his voice like oil. We're not asking for your approval, just your discretion. This doesn't have to blow up if you don't want it to. We can keep this between us until the time is right. The time is right? I spat. He has a wife, children. Do you even hear yourself? My daughter flinched. He just smiled. These things are complicated. Marriages end every day. Sometimes people realize they've been with the wrong person. That's life. I laughed bitterly, the sound ugly in my throat. And what about her? What about the woman who trusted you? What about those kids? Are they just casualties in your little fantasy? He hardened, but he kept that same calm tone. They'll be fine. Kids are resilient. As for her, well, she'll survive. She always does. The way he said it, so casual, so dismissive, made my stomach churn. I turned to my daughter, desperate. You hear that? That's how he talks about his wife. That's how he'll talk about you one day. Disposable. Replaceable. Stop it, she shouted, covering her ears. Why can't you just let me be happy? Because this isn't happiness, I screamed back, my chest heaving. It's poison, and he's feeding it to you. The screen glowed in my hand like it was daring me to open it. A new message. His wife's name on the screen. My heart stopped, then started again at a painful pace. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't even move. My finger hovered, trembling, before I forced myself to tap. It was short. I know. 2 words, nothing else. The blood drained from my face. She knew. Did she know about me? Did she think I was the other woman? Or did she know about my daughter? My stomach twisted until I thought I might throw up. I tried to breathe, to think, but the phone buzzed again. Please, we need to talk. Just you and me. I stared at the screen. My throat felt tight. I didn't want this. I didn't want to be pulled further into his mess. But a part of me knew. I had no choice. If she already knew something, the dam was breaking, and when it broke, my daughter would be swept away in the flood. I typed slowly, my fingers shaking. When? Her reply came instantly. Tomorrow, at my house. He won't be there. I sat back, my chest heaving. Tomorrow, at her house. The thought of walking into the lion's den made my entire body tense. But something in me whispered, this is the only way forward. This is the only way to save her. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, phone in my hand, staring at the door as if they might come back. Every sound outside made me jump. My chest hurt from holding in sobs I couldn't let out. When morning came, I showered on autopilot, dressed, and drove to her house. The drive felt endless. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. With every mile, I thought about turning around, pretending this wasn't happening, pretending I could ignore it and somehow things would fix themselves. But when her house came into view, I knew there was no turning back. It was bigger than mine, prettier, the kind of home that looked like it belonged in a magazine, the kind of home my daughter probably thought she was trading me for. I parked out front and sat, frozen. Finally, I forced myself out of the car and walked up the driveway. My knees felt weak, like they might give out at any second. The door opened before I could knock. She stood there, her face pale but composed, beautiful in a cold way. Her eyes searched mine, and I saw everything there. Anger, grief, betrayal, but also something else. Resignation. "Come in," she said softly. I followed her inside. The air smelled faintly of coffee and lemon cleaner. Everything was spotless. Perfect. We sat across from each other at the dining table. The silence stretched until it was unbearable. Finally, she spoke. "I know about her." My heart stopped. You know?" Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed calm. "Yes. Your daughter. I've known for weeks. I wasn't sure at first, but the way he looked at her, the excuses he made. Then I found the messages." My stomach lurched. "Messages?" She nodded. "On his phone. He thought he was being clever, deleting them, but he's not as smart as he thinks." Her hands trembled as she reached for her coffee cup. I wanted to deny it, pretend it wasn't happening, but when I saw her leaving your house with him last night, my breath caught. "You saw?" Her eyes met mine, sharp and cutting. "Do you think I don't notice when my husband sneaks out? Do you think I don't see him watching her when he thinks no one's looking?" Shame washed over me, even though I wasn't the one guilty. "I tried to stop it," I whispered. "I told her to end it. I told her to move out. But she thinks she's in love," she finished for me, bitterness dripping from every word. I nodded, tears finally spilling down my face. For a moment, neither of us spoke, just sat there, two women bound together by the same betrayal, the same man. Finally, she leaned forward, her voice sharp. "We have to end this, now, before he destroys her, before he destroys everything." The force in her voice startled me. "How?" Her lips tightened. "I'll confront him, with you there. He won't be able to talk his way out of it if we stand together." The thought of facing him made my skin crawl, but the determination in her eyes lit something inside me. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. "Yes, we end it." That evening, she texted me again. "He'll be home after work. Be here at 7. My hand shook as I read it. It was happening. When I arrived, the sun was setting, painting the house in shades of orange and gold. My heart pounded as I walked up the driveway. This time she opened the door quickly, her face set like stone. "He'll be here any minute." We sat in the living room, waiting. The clock ticked loudly on the wall. My nerves were so raw that every sound felt like a gunshot. Then, the sound of tires on the driveway, the crunch of gravel. The front door opened and he stepped inside. The moment he saw me, he froze. His eyes flicked between me and his wife. For the first time, he looked unsure. "What's this?" he asked carefully. His wife stood. Her voice was ice. "Sit down." He hesitated, then slowly sank into the chair across from us. His smile flickered back, but it didn't reach his eyes. "What's going on?" She leaned forward, her voice steady. "We know. About her. About everything." His smile faltered. Don't, she snapped. "Don't lie to me. Not now." His jaw tightened, his eyes slid to me. "You told her?" "I didn't have to," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "She saw. She found the messages." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then he leaned back, crossing his arms. "So what? She's an adult. She knows what she wants." My chest burned with rage. "She's a child. She doesn't know what she's getting into." "She's not a child," he shot back. "She's a woman. And she came to me. She chose me." The audacity, the arrogance, the way he twisted everything, it made my vision blur with fury. His wife's voice was sharp as a knife. "You think you can just throw away our marriage, our family, for a fling with a girl barely older than your own daughter?" His eyes flashed. "It's not a fling. It's real." "Real?" she spat. "You disgust me." He stood suddenly, his voice rising. "You don't understand. None of you do. She sees me for who I really am. She loves me, something you've never done." The room shook with his anger. For a moment, I thought he might hit something. My hands curled into fists in my lap. Then his wife stood, her face inches from his. Her voice dropped to a whisper, full of venom. "You're pathetic, and I'm done." The words hit him like a slap. His face twisted with rage, and that's when the front door opened. My daughter stood there, suitcase in hand. She froze, staring at the scene, her mother, his wife, and him, all standing in the living room like pieces on a chessboard. What What's happening? She whispered. He turned to her, his face softening instantly, the rage melting into false gentleness. It's okay, sweetheart. Don't worry. We're just talking. But her wife cut in sharply. No, she deserves the truth. My daughter's eyes darted between us, panic rising. What truth? My chest heaved. This was it. The moment everything would collapse. I stood slowly, my voice trembling. The truth is, he's been lying to you. To all of us. He doesn't love you. He doesn't even love her. He only loves himself. No, my daughter whispered, shaking her head. His wife stepped forward, her eyes blazing. He told me the same words he told you. He promised me the same future, and when he's done with you, he'll find someone else, because that's who he is. My daughter's face crumpled. You're lying, both of you. He moved toward her, his hand reaching out. Don't listen to them. They just don't understand us. Come on, let's go. But this time, she hesitated. For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. And I seized it. Look at him, I said, my voice breaking. Look at how he treats the woman who stood by him for years. Look at how he talks to me. That's your future, sweetheart. Pain, lies, loneliness. Please, don't do this. Her hand shook on the handle of her suitcase. Tears streamed down her face. I don't know, she whispered. He reached for her again, desperate now. Baby, don't let them poison you. You're all I need. You're everything. And then his wife stepped forward and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He staggered back, stunned. Don't you dare, she hissed. Not again, not to her. The spell broke. My daughter dropped the suitcase and sobbed, collapsing into my arms. I held her tight, my own tears falling into her hair. He stood there, his face red, his chest heaving, staring at us like he couldn't believe what had just happened. You'll regret this, he spat finally, before storming out the door. The silence he left behind was deafening. My daughter clung to me, shaking, while his wife stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. The web of lies was broken, but the damage would take years to heal. That night, I lay awake in bed with my daughter curled beside me like when she was little. She cried until she fell asleep. I stared at the ceiling, my chest aching. It was over. But at what cost? I didn't know. What I did know was this. He would come back. Men like him didn't let go easily, and when he did, we would have to be ready. Because this was no longer just about an affair. This was survival. It had been 2 weeks. The house was quiet again. My daughter was still raw, still sleeping too much, still waking up crying some nights, but she was here with me. She hadn't spoken his name once since that night. That at least was a victory. I told myself it was over, that he was gone, that he had moved on to some other poor fool. And then the letter came. It wasn't in the mailbox. It wasn't dropped on the porch. It was slid under our front door. I found it that morning when I came downstairs for coffee. An unmarked envelope, my name scrawled across it in messy handwriting. My heart sank before I even opened it. Inside was one sentence, written in the same hand. You can't keep her from me forever. The paper shook in my hands. My blood ran cold. I glanced up at the door, half expecting to see his shadow on the other side, watching, waiting. My daughter came into the kitchen, yawning, still bleary-eyed. I shoved the letter behind my back before she could see it. She smiled weakly at me. Morning, Mom. I forced myself to smile back. Morning, sweetheart. But inside, my chest was pounding with terror, because I knew, in that moment, he wasn't done with us, not even close.